Ready? Okay, thanks, Nikita. So it's 9:30. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll begin with an adoption of the agenda that's in front of us. Councillor Wilhelm.
Can I add something to the agenda today?
Yes.
I'm not sure under what we put it, maybe business arising. We just need a discussion between council and administration about some ongoing road work that's happening in my division specifically, and some not great interactions with residents lately that have been arising out of it, so I just want to discuss with council about it.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, Mr. Franklin. Thank
Your
you.
Worship, just if it's a personnel matter, you want to deal with that in closed session?
Not personnel, it'd be more of a policy issue.
The other suggestion that you can bring it up under members' business, right,
Okay.
if it's in general terms, right?
Sure, I can
Again,
bring it up
that's-
during the round table.
It's flexible, right? Right.
I can bring it up during the round table.
You wanna approach it that way?
Sure.
Okay. All right, Councillor Prestige.
I would like to add to the agenda the Robert Stanley subdivision.
Okay.
And we have to go into committee as a whole to discuss what was said on the December 8th meeting in committee as a whole.
Be under
Your Worship, item 11.5, that would be?
1.5, yep. And the FOIA preference would be 17 or 19?
It'd be 17, yeah.
What is 17?
I'd have to grab my act, but it's advice from either legal or administration. My VoIP person isn't here today, so.
Okay, so that's 11.5, Robert Stanley under subdivision under FOIP 17. Any additions from admin?
Yeah, Your Worship, members of council, just so that council's clear, this morning, unfortunately, 8.7 was added to the agenda at 9 o'clock. We thought it was on the agenda and we discovered, for whatever reason, it didn't get published. So since you're amending the agenda, I would make council aware that 8.7 is there.
Okay, 8.7 is the old Blue Ridge Highway Rehabilitation Tender. Okay. Councillor Token.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Very good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. We'll move down to item 3.1, which is regular council meetings, adoption of the minutes, July 20th of 2022. Errors or omissions there? Go ahead. Councillor
Make
Bush.
a motion to adopt the council meeting minutes of July 20th, 2022.
Councilor Bush.
That's my motion.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Cush. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. No public hearings, no bylaws, no delegations, no business arising. New business, 8.1, municipal emergency management appointment, so that's the DEM. And this is going to be, as soon as my...
Yeah, Your Worship, members of council, Mr. Scott has left. He was the DEM. We need to appoint someone to that position, and administration is recommending myself.
Okay. Councillor Dean.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Makes sense. Just a question, when that position is filled, logically then Dem would follow.
Subject to the individual having the requirements to do it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
And you had held that in the past.
That's correct.
Yes. So this is not something you're unfamiliar with, just so people understand. Councillor Dean.
So I'll move that council appoints Gordon Frank, CAO, the Director of Emergency Management.
Okay, very good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Bring us to nominations for the Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee Medal. Mr. Frank.
Your worship, this is, an email came out asking for nominations. We have a little bit of time, not much, but if council is aware of anybody that they believe should be nominated for this position, there would be a motion, or a discussion and a motion.
Okay. So, everyone's read the RFD. It's basically 155 medals, and there's the nominations available from municipalities to put names forward. And the medal should focus on achievements of persons who helped build the Alberta of today. And does anyone have any names they want to put forward? Councillor Kuchen.
Yeah, I read through the criteria that's required, and the only part of that one that nominators should not submit names of their spouse, partner, family members, political associates, or close friends. And I think it's really difficult for a person to do that in these small communities, the close friend part, because I went and looked back at the history of a friend of mine, Doug Borg, who was instrumental in the development of this municipality. And not only that, but with conversations of the manager in Swan Hills, the Reeve, or the mayor of Swan Hills and their council, the contribution that Doug made to their municipality and the rescue effort he put in there for the number of years that he held the CAO admin position up there has not gone unnoticed either in the municipal level nor amongst some of the senior people in government. Doug was involved in developing the municipal district because he was also a councillor, I guess, or a part of the development when it was still at ID 15, and actually was the one that helped fabricate the very essence of the borders in the municipality. Before that, he was instrumental as a councillor in the arena in Fort Assiniboine, the Pride Valley, the road there prior to the area structure plan, the Alberta Wildland Park, big time. One of the projects that he was really, really involved in was the Athabasca Heritage River project, which fell apart when he wasn't on council anymore, and it's unfortunate that happened, but it's one of those things. He was a local historian, spent umpteen hours on the Klondike Trail Society, and actually orchestrated a rewrite of the Klondike Trail from the drift pile area all the way through Swan Hills and back to the Klondike, and remapped that. So when you look at the long history that he's had in our community and this municipality, I think that the 20 some odd years or more that he spent in the community and in local government is worthy of a nomination.
Okay. Councillor Prestige.
We have a gentleman in Blue Ridge, Dave Jackson, who has been a volunteer on many different levels for probably 30 years. He was a county councillor for a number of years. He helped develop the fire department in Blue Ridge. And community league for years. Him and his wife were the ones behind the senior supper. And wherever he was needed, he would go and volunteer. In the last few years before his health got too bad, he volunteered to cut all the grass in the village. Just a very community-minded person.
Excuse me. Okay. Any other discussion or names you want to, council wants to put forward? Are we limited on names on Suga? We can put a couple, right? Yeah. It's 3?
It shows 3 in the,
That's, your worship, members of council, it's only because probably limited space, but you can nominate whatever you believe is worthy of the medal.
Okay. So do we want to nominate those two names?
just know Doug and Dave work together a lot. So they're very similar individuals, so they both are very worthy of voting.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's important that we certainly recognize the contribution, so does anyone wish to make the motion for the two? We'll take them individually. Councillor Prestidge.
Oh, the council, you want separate names or? both together?
Do we need a separate motion for each, or do you want?
Again, my understanding, if there is controversy, you'd want them separate, but I don't believe that's the case, so you can combine.
Let's do them separately, just in case there's an issue, and that way we have a little easier time with it, so.
I'll make a recommendation that council nominates Dave Jackson for the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal, Alberta, and directs administration forward the nominee to RMA.
Okay, very good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Sorry, I'm in favor.
So you were,
Yeah, I'm in favor.
okay, thank you. So that's carried. Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
I just want to speak to what Councillor Culkin talked about, with respect to the close friend, and I'm wondering if, I think council supports Mr. Borg's nomination, but I'm wondering if Councillor Culkin should not be the person that makes the motion.
And that would be fine if another councillor would like to make that nomination. Councillor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council nominates Doug Borg for the Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee Medal, Alberta, and directs administration to forward the nominee to RMA.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, Briar Patch Contingency, that's item 8.3. And Andre.
Your worship, members of council, 2022, the capital budget included funds to do the abatement work in the Briar Patch. Tender was let out for $128,000 with a contingency of $12,850. While they were doing work, there was some hidden items that had to be removed, resulting in overage of about 17.5%, or $22,580. The work's been completed. Our budget was $255,000. With the additional contingencies included, the job's coming in under $200,000. Recommendation is that council approves the costs of $9,730 plus taxes for the completion of the Briar Patch hazardous material abatement.
Okay, and for clarification, this was asbestos. What were the extra items that were found?
There was additional asbestos found under a floor that was removed. There was a subfloor under it that had to be removed.
Okay. That's a little extra work. All right, any discussion or questions to administration on this from council?
So I'll say, I mean, we budgeted 250, we're still under that with the extra, and the work had to get done, so, make a motion, the council approves the cost of $9,730 plus taxes for the completion of the Briar Patch hazardous materials abatement.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That takes us to item 8.4. This is going to be Andre again. Airport land breaking request for proposals.
Your worship, members of council, administration tendered out or let out request for proposals to break the land that was logged in 2020. The document identified the size of the material that was to be left over. We got 2 bids. Both of them were over $250,000. We expect to get revenue of roughly $130,000 for the land we logged outside of the fence. Administration is recommending that council rejects all bids for the airport land breaking request for proposals. We will be spraying what we logged internally to kill the brush and vegetation growth, basically everything but the grass. And we will be seeking pricing for conventional land breaking, so breaking disc, root rakes, and then cultivating and then eventually seeding. That will take place in 2023.
Okay. Any questions to admin on this? Councilor Clukin?
Yeah, through the chair to Andre. A couple of questions. One is, how many acres are we talking about there?
I think it's, going from memory, 59 hectares, I believe.
So 100 acres plus. And the second question is, what are you thinking the cost of doing the vegetation management is going to be annually? Have you looked at what that would cost just to keep it in state until we choose to break it?
Through the chair to Council Culkin, we did get a price on spraying, roughly $8,000. The chemical, I believe, was around $5,000.
So if we were to do it annually, it would be kind of a $13,000 cost or as needed
That's correct.
for that. Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussions? Councilor President?
Recommendation that council rejects all bids for airport land breaking requests for proposals.
Okay. Motion on the floor from Councilor Prestige. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Brings us to engineering the Horse Creek ANC Road. Andre, you're a hot topic today here.
Your worship, members of council, the administration will be proposing for 2023 that Horse Creek Road be resurfaced and the A and C Road resurfaced and some base work completed. That would be I can't think of the word, debentured project. In order to take advantage of early season bidding, administration is requesting that council approves the reallocation of $100,000 from unbudgeted 2022 revenue to prepare engineering work and documents required to tender the repaving of Horse Creek Road and ANC roads. That $250,000 is the surplus equipment we sold that we did not budget for. So that was unbudgeted revenue.
Okay. Any questions to administration on this? Councilor Wilhelm?
What's the current surfacing on Horse Creek Road?
Through the chair to Councilor Williams, is asphalt, and it's an all-season road.
How many residents are serviced on this road?
I'm gonna say maybe 10 or 12. But it is one of the main roads up there for agricultural use, and it's the main logging road also.
Councillor Culkin.
Yeah, that particular stretch of road was put in specifically to bypass the town of Fort Assiniboine with the heavy loads going down the 661 down the hill, which isn't stable. And the other thing was that it really services the heavy truck industry into the Timu area, which has potential for a lot of development. And I don't know, Gord, but how many years ago was that road put in or on?
Through the chair to Council Culkin, that road was put in roughly 26 years ago, and the lifespan of asphalt surface is typically 20 to 25 years. And it was identified in our asphalt road assessment that that road would require resurfacing within the next 2 years, which would make this year the second year.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Prestige?
I think what we have to keep in mind too is if we don't resurface it now, it's gonna get worse and it'll cost more.
Absolutely, Councillor Culkin.
The other part of that is that if you look at the cost of resurfacing it and then put that cost over the length of the road, over the 25-year span that resurfacing is going to be there, I would think that if you look at what it would cost you annually to maintain that road with the traffic that was on it, if it wasn't hard surface, it would become far more expensive. So and that was the reason I think that it was put in there initially.
Okay. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, I think it's not so much how many people are on that road. It inadvertently, a lot of people use that road. There's 10 residents on it, but every county road north of Fort Assiniboine intersects that. So it's quite an artery for industry, farming, just people in general. Like it's a very well used road. If you're ever bored for an hour, you count a lot. I think there's 35 log trucks hauling down it right now. So it's quite an important road, I would say.
Where are they hauling the logs to? Is that is ANC or?
Miller Western, and some goes to Alpac. They have a laydown yard halfway down or quarter of the way down Horse Creek Road,
Yeah.
where it's jam full of logs.
Yeah, I think that's actually a kind of a gateway into the topic. I mean, when we talk about some of the collector roads that are, town wants maintained, we certainly made the argument during our arbitration that the collector road shouldn't even be included, but if they were, we would have had the arguments around, or at least a discussion around heavy haul roads that also benefit businesses that are in the town, but we didn't bother making that because we thought it was out of scope. So I just think it's important to point this out, and this is a $4.5 million project on the one and $750,000 on the other, so go ahead, Councillor Cush.
I was just going to make the motion that council approves the reallocation of $100,000 from unbudgeted 2022 revenue to prepare engineering work and documents required to tender the repaving of Horse Creek Road and the ANC Road.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Sand and salt shelter, item 8.6. Excuse me, that's going to be Andre again.
Your worship, members of council, administration re-tendered the sand salt shed for the Whitecourt side. The facility was reduced by 16% or 30 feet. We had one bid for $505,957,000. After the bids were reviewed, discussions with the engineer, they feel that we can reduce the pricing by speccing a different type of building and having additional drawings for the bidders to bid on and to re-tender it in beginning of 2023. Administration is recommending that council reject the bid received for the sand salt facility tender, and that the council directs administration to re-tender the sand salt facility in December for 2023.
Okay. So we had, just for clarification, we had something that was gonna go with the town there, but that didn't work out.
That is correct.
Okay. Any other, go ahead, Councillor Copeland.
Yeah, through the chair to Andre, first of all, I'd like to say that, you know, I really appreciate the fact that we're able to look at this and see that you guys are working on, you know, getting the best deal for us as possible. And the only question, the second question for me would be, when we do these facilities, like the sand and salt, the salt part is one of the pieces that is expensive because of the fact that we have to put the environmental stuff down and all of that, so that the public understands that when we're looking at a bid for a building, that $500,000 is a lot of money, but there's a lot of things that go into it as well. So, you know, I don't quite understand what they have to do to make this so expensive. So what are some of the issues that are different than a normal construction?
Through the chair to Councilor Culkin, I echo that same comment. I don't know why it's coming in that high. It's essentially concrete blocks as the base, and then a rib roof with fabric on top. The engineers feel that one of the issues, like everything else, is getting staff to work and the increase in metal. We know the concrete blocks are $90 each, and it's going to take roughly 150 of them, so there's not a lot of money there. The rest is the rib frame and the fabric, so we don't have a good answer.
All right,
Quick question.
go ahead.
Through the chair to Andre, or I guess administration, was the breakdown with the potential agreement with the town, is that because they didn't want to work with us, or just an agreement that was not going to be tenable for us?
Through the chair to Councilor Wilhelm, I believe it comes down to the ICF. I should also point out that 2023, we will be budgeting for another structure in Fort Cinnabon.
Okay. All right, which way does council want to go here? Go ahead, Councilor. Push.
Given we're, just about double the price of what we budgeted on this, I'll make the motion that council rejects the bid received for the sand and salt facility tender.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried, and there's a part 2 here as well, so Councilor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council directs administration to re-tender the sand and salt facility in December for 2023.
Okay, very good. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. All right, we're into Old Blue Ridge Highway Rehabilitation tender. Andre.
There is a members of council, the 650 meters of the old Blue Ridge Highway immediately west of Blue Ridge was tendered out for reconstruction along with 2 bridge files, which are culvert files, being replaced. We had one bid, came in at $1.994 million. the end. Reasons for the higher price is that contractors are very busy, having problems obtaining staff. Asphalt's increased 100% since last year, and letting out the tender in the middle of construction year. What administration is proposing, that the bid received is rejected, that council approves administration to tender the replacement of the 2 bridge culverts funded from the 2022 bridge maintenance budget in the work taking place this fall. We have $400,000 within the bridge maintenance budget. We had not identified structures that required maintenance this year. Part of the tender received within that 1.99 million was a breakdown of the culvert replacement. That came in just over 320,000 replacement for the 2. So we feel that there are local contractors that are qualified to bid this job within budget, and that can be done this year. We would be re-tendering the reconstruction of that 650 meters either this December or at the latest February of 2023. One of the bridge culverts is failing. We did repair it midsummer. I don't think it will last a whole lot longer.
All right, questions to administration on this one? Okay, do we like the recommended action? Go ahead, Councilor Prestige.
Make a motion that council rejects all tenders for the Old Blue Ridge Road Rehabilitation and instructs administration to tender the replacement of the 2 bridge culverts funded from the 2022 bridge maintenance budget, with work taking place in 2022.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Councilor Dean?
Just want to clarify, so you're of the opinion that there's local contractors that can do the work in the, within the scope of the budget. If that doesn't happen, plan B is to come back and postpone the project?
Through the chair to Councillor Dean, depending what the numbers come back, if it's relatively close, we would probably come back to council seeking additional funds and award.
Okay.
That would, either way, there'll be an RFD coming back to council.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the motion's still on the floor, so any discussion, further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right, we have a fire engine purchase, item 8.8. And that is going to be Andre again.
Your worship, members of council, 2022 budget included $200,000 as a down payment for the purchase of a new fire truck. The specs were drawn up. The bidding was let out. We had 1 bid received from Rocky Mountain Phoenix for the submitted price of $706,129.20. But one of the items identified in the bid price was that the chassis price cannot be guaranteed until September of this year. They did put an estimate in there of $126,830. So that bid number may change one way or the other. The $200,000 is for the deposit only, 10% upon issuing of the PO, and then the full price of the chassis being paid upon delivery. The remaining funds for that, so $406,000, would be budgeted in the 2023 capital budget. Recommendation that council approves the purchase of a new fire engine as quoted by Rocky Mountain Phoenix for the value of $706,129, pending confirmation of chassis pricing in September 2022.
Okay, questions to administration on this? I'll go with Councillor Cush and then Councillor D.
Just one quick question, the truck, where is this truck, which hall is it supposed to go to?
That's a good question. Through Chair Council Cush, a good question. I did know that. Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Your worship, members of council through to Councillor Cush for the Assembly.
Okay, Councillor Cloken?
Yeah, just a question, a life cycle question, through the chair to Andre. A lot of these trucks, you know, are being replaced as they age out. And my question just is, if we have a program where we can recertify them every so many years, does it serve a purpose to do that, or can we do that? Because you know, a lot of these trucks, you know, the hours that they actually get used in comparison to what industry does with similar, you know, vehicles. My question would be, is it necessary to do these repurchases just because they mile out in that time frame?
Through the chair, I will defer to CEO Frank.
Your worship, members of council through to Councillor Koken, the short answer is yes, they can go beyond their life expectancy. However, pumps have to be certified every year, and as long as that pump is certified, they can. The standard policy for municipalities in general is 20 to 25 years for the life expectancy. Nothing stops. I've been in municipalities where they become the second line unit. And then as long as that pump is certified, every year it can be used.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, just a second to that. I guess then if that's the case, the big problem would be more with the chassis, because we all know that after 25 years, I know from having equipment, sometimes it becomes difficult to find the other parts. So, yeah, just a clarification so that our general public understands that we're trying to make those things as affordable as possible.
Okay. Anyone wish to, Councillor
Just
Cush?
one more question, the unit that this is replacing in the fourth end for the public, how old is that unit? You know?
Through the chair to council, I don't do fire trucks. I just move this one along, so I will defer that to.
I see somebody who's involved in the fire end of things up there, so I'm going to recognize Councillor Williams, and he can probably give
That
us
truck's
an
in 2004, so the 20 years is up in 2024. And to be a Class A haul, you have to have a truck within 20 years to maintain that. So you can keep them and like CEO said, you can repurpose them and things like that, or to another haul that's not a Class A haul. So it's still a good truck. It's just NFPA standards tell you what you have to do.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and a lot of that NFPA is just retire after a certain period of time, like bottles and some of these other things, so. All right, so we have a few recommended actions, and what do we wish to go with, council?
Make a motion, council approve the purchase of a new fire engine as quoted by Rocky Mountain Phoenix for the value of $706,129, pending confirmation of chassis pricing in September 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Cush. I'm gonna just make one question, and it relates to the motion, but not directly. So, just as another option, to continue recertifying the pump year after year, what does that cost?
Approximately $1,500 on the average for an individual or company to come out. They do them all 4 fire halls at one time.
Okay. And to follow up on that, do we expect equipment prices to stabilize or go down in the future, or, I know that's in an answer sealed under Funkenwagner's porch at the moment, but, I know it's a complete crapshoot, but do you have any ideas? I know equipment is really hard to come by right now.
Your worship, from my personal experience, I asked for a test drive of a unit, and the individual wrote back to me and said, you can look at one. Yeah, but don't know when you can test drive one. So they wouldn't even let it out as a showroom, right? Which was interesting, so I did ask when they expected. He says, yeah, good luck. So to answer your question, I have no idea about the stabilization. Again, depending on what you read and what you listen to, inflation seems to be stabilizing, so parts are starting to flow, but
Councilor Prestige?
Through the chair to Andre or Gord, the truck that's in Fort Assiniboine is not getting permanently retired, from what I understand. It was going to Ensemble.
Your worship, members of council, and again, the general rule which our fire departments work under is Blue Ridge and Fort Assiniboine are our frontline newest units. After 10 years, they go to the El Salmo and Goose Lake halls. However, one of the there was an accident that occurred, I want to say in 2014 with our Whitecourt Fire Department. We replaced it with a pumper tanker, and that newer unit, because it was insurance rental lease, we were able to get a good deal, and it went into the Goose Lake Hall. So, and pending the outcome of Goose Lake in regards to volunteers, that will be addressed this fall. The intent is always to use those units
Okay.
most efficiently.
Well, we've got to start replacing this stuff at some point, so, still a motion on the floor. Any other discussion to that motion? Don't see any. I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. This is going to bring us to item 8.9, Whitecourt District Library Public Funding. Mr. Frank, the presenter on this one.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, a notice of motion was made at the last council meeting to bring the letter from the Whitecourt District Public Library forth. The letter is attached. Council or administration is recommending it accepted for information.
Councilor Wilhelm?
So just reviewing the RFD and my recollection of the discussion around this, I believe we had offered them, the town of the Whitecourt Public Library, two options. One was either to enter the proposed agreement that we'd sent them, or additionally to go to Woodlands County Library Board for interim funding. Councillor Cush, did that ever occur? Did they never came to the Woodlands County Library?
No, we had discussed, talking to them if they, to try to spread around the legal end of things through the ICF, if we had to move funding to the Woodlands Library Board and have the Whitecourt Library address that, kind of have the money sitting there for them to be able to come that way. But my understanding is it's an option they don't want to pursue. So this is kind of where it's at. We have a contract they don't want to accept currently, and there's other funding that we tried kind of help in that way that's also hasn't been pursued. So
Okay. Any other? Go ahead,
I
Councilor.
just want to comment, I know, like, publicly, I mean, the consensus that's keep going out in the media right now is if the funding isn't given there, the library is going to reduce hours. It's going to, go back to curbside or assistance and stuff if it doesn't get the funding. But I mean, the media hasn't kind of pointed out the idea of the contract. This was something that, you know, me on that board came to this council, the council before, to the county to try to secure funding, something that was agreeable for them. Unfortunately, the first one we had some verbiage that didn't work. We tried getting things kind of changed, things kind of stalled out when it got thrown into the ICF negotiations from the town. And coming back out of this, you know, Ms. Howe said that, you know, we have to try to have some type of an agreement or whatnot with them, or, you know, she'll kind of, I guess, step in to try to force something. But on the flip side, we put the agreement out there, and again, it stalled out. I mean, it's disappointing from, you know, my standpoint. I'm an advocate for this board. I try to, you know, do something that has secured funding, has growth, has, you know, dates for them. And again, it's, you know, put off. I mean, I understand they want to hold off until the ICF's done, but I just, you know, they want the terms of the contract without having the contract. It's unfortunately kind of where we're at. And we have put the offer out there. I mean, if they don't want to go with the contract, they don't want to do the funding, if this comes in next year where we're trying to negotiate stuff again, depending on where stuff lands with the ICF. Unfortunately, we have, we have 65,000 allotted for this library. In my opinion, if we have to split funds for library services to the town of Whitecourt and to the library board, I think we're gonna have to have a discussion on how the funding actually looks. I mean, we got 65 to 15 goes to the town. I think it's gonna be back to 50 going there. It's still 65,000 for library services, but currently there's no agreement. There's nothing there. We've put it out there. We've tried. The funding, you know, they want says they want the funding, but they don't want to accept the current agreement. So I guess that's where it stands. I'll make a motion that council accepts the Whitecourt District Library Funding Agreement as information.
Okay, I'm gonna accept that motion from Councillor Cush and then Councillor Dean.
Yeah, just a question to the motion. I guess I'll start with you, Dave. So the two questions, if you will. The first one was, or is, were you personally in discussions with the library board on the workaround that we had talked about, where we would fund the Woodlands County Library Board, which then in turn could transfer funds over?
That came out in I believe it was a letter that was sent to them with the option. We had that discussion here, went there, and unfortunately the last library board meeting was implementation.
Okay. You know, coming back to what Jeremy said, you know, in recollection, it's hard to remember things, and that likely was in an in-camera session, so I can't go back and watch on YouTube. What I remember, John, was that you were gonna give the Whitecourt Public Library Board a call, the chair, and discuss that workaround that we had talked about.
Yeah, I had a conversation with them, but I didn't bring up that specific item.
Okay, so I guess what I'm wondering is that, are they aware that that's...
The reality is that workaround that we were, and again, a lot of this that we're talking about is kind of skirting the edge of some FOIP issues that are involved with the discussions that we had at council, so.
Your worship,
Go ahead.
in your letter that was addressed to them indicates that they seek.
That they seek it through that's right, we did put that letter out, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I think it's fair to say that the library board, our interpretation of the Library Act is that there's separate legislation around the library boards. The library boards exist independent of Woodlands County Council. They exist independent of the town council. And I think it's fair to say that they're getting caught in the middle of a dispute between two municipalities. I would love to have this rectified, and I won't put any blame one way or the other here, but they're being caught in the middle of this mess, and there is more to come on this ICF legislation that's going to be a real problem with some of the resolutions that we're going to see from the AB Munis, and just the lack of clarity around the legislation. So for those people that are watching this and say this is a town-county issue. It's really not. There's a lot of municipalities that are having these or about to go into some serious issues around this legislation. I'll leave it at that, but we still have a motion on the floor from Councillor Cush. So are there any questions, further questions to the motion?
Yeah, so I had another one. I just want to come back to that notion of the conversation of what I'm wondering is if the Whitecourt District Public Library Board understands what the intent was to funnel the funds through the Woodlands Library Board.
Conversation I had was after the Woodlands Library Board cut it was an agreement they had where they were sharing a portion for basically resource sharing before they tied into YRL. After that, they basically don't want to financially kind of do that because they're not. My understanding, they don't believe that the money goes to that, they're going to get all of it. Basically, is where it is. So they didn't want to pursue that road.
Okay. And the second question I had is, you referenced terms within the contract that we had set forth that they were uncomfortable with. What were those terms?
Those were the verbiages in the first one about towards being able to apply for other grant funding, and then they didn't want the portion there that specified, for the building maintenance or whatever. So we made sure those lines were out and it had a list of what it covered, which was the services.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything further? All right. And again, I think it's fair to point out that the sticking point and the reason that some of that verbiage is in there is so that there's a clear delineation that Woodlands has put aside a certain amount of money for libraries and doesn't want to get into an agreement where it obligates us into millions of dollars worth of buildings that come along with it. So that's really the sticking point from our side. And again, unfortunately, the library board is getting caught in the middle of this. I'll leave it at that, and if there's nothing further to Councillor Cush's motion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? So that's carried. So that brings us to correspondence and information. Anybody see anything they wish to bring up, or? No? I'll accept the motion to move it for information, or as circulated. Councillor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council accepts the correspondence and information items as circulated.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? I always ask that, but. Council reports and questions. We'll start with Councillor Dean.
Thank you. Summertime, so not a whole lot going on between the two meetings, but I did attend the Whitecourt Ag Society meeting on Monday, and they give it's a bit busy organization. They put on a rodeo that was extremely well received within the community, especially the chuck wagon portion of it. I just want to make a comment about that board, and I think it's reflective of most of the volunteer boards that we work with. They have a limited amount of volunteers, and the funding that Woodlands County grants to these boards is very well utilized. These people do a great job with the funds that they have. Some upcoming events that they have this weekend, there's another mud bog event. I know it conflicts with the Hamlet Hoedown, but just wanted to make people aware. And also the board asked me to extend an invitation to council and to anybody that may be interested in their Gymkhana dinner and dance on the Sunday of the September long weekend. And then yesterday, I attended an airport advisory committee meeting, and Andre and Steve did a great job. We held the meeting at the airport, which was was awesome for the committee members to get familiar with the layout of that facility. We actually had a tour. There was a bus there that took us around, and Steve did a good job of identifying various projects that are on kind of the to-do list. And we also had a consultant group that gave us a report and a recommendation on designation of some taxiways. So that information will likely come in an RFD to council. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Any questions to Councillor Dean? Okay, Councillor Wilhelm.
Yeah, just like everybody else, summer's slow for council stuff. I went to the Blue Ridge Family Day event a couple weeks ago. Well attended, mostly by mosquitoes. No, there was actually lots of residents there, but cooked some hot dogs, had a good time. Got to meet some of the older residents in Blue Ridge that I'd never met before, and hear some stories about the region. I think one of the guys I talked to had been in that area longer than Blue Ridge has been a town, so it was an interesting conversation to have with them. And I got to see some of the other councillors as well, so it was a good event there. I was supposed to be at the airport meeting yesterday, so I apologize to the other councillors for missing that one. Work is absolutely crazy right now, so I can't get away for sometimes for some of the daytime meetings. And then lastly, I have a concern or some questions actually, on my part to administration that I'm hoping to get some more clarification on, and maybe a discussion around one of the maybe legacy policies that's happening that's carrying over now. We've had some construction recently on two of our roads. One was Bison and one was the Woodlands Estate Road. Both of these roads, well, were cold mixed hardtop roads that were in disrepair because they require repairs, and they're probably reaching the end life of what they were available, and it's getting difficult to maintain them to the level that they need to be maintained. And with budget concerns, obviously they're not available to be retopped right now or resurfaced in that manner. But I would like to maybe understand the current policy around that, and just bring the concerns of the residents forward with regards to that. I had 10 phone calls just this morning, talking with residents about it. They're not happy, specifically on the Woodlands Estates Road. These, just to share their concerns with you guys, and I'm sure you guys see this in your regions as well, but these are high density residential areas in our county. There's lots of residents that live down there. There are lots of high value properties in that area, and they've gone from a hard top surface road that services all their properties. They've asphalt their own driveways, which are now have a gravel road servicing an asphalt road, and they now no longer have that road. Bison was bad. Woodlands Estates was even worse. I just drove down it this morning. This is a road that just had construction on it and is already washboarded and dusty as heck, and residents are not happy. I can understand areas like, say, Range Road 120, which I live down. We bought our property down in that area, or I bought my property down in that area on a gravel road, knowing that I was going to have a gravel road down that area, hoping someday it would be paved, but that's never been promised. But you have residents that are living in areas now that had cold mixed hardtop roads to their properties that's now been taken away from them with, one, no consideration of if they wanted that to happen, and two, massively impacting their lives moving forward. All right, these are people who like to push their strollers down their hardtop road to take their kids out for walks that now can no longer do that because they have a gravel road in front of their property. And and as a gravel road person myself, I understand that we live in a county, sometimes we're gonna have gravel roads, but these people didn't have gravel roads before. Their property values and their quality of life have now been massively impacted by this decision. And I want to express that with administration because these people are not happy. And to be honest, I can't understand myself why that decision was made. And I would like administration to explain why such a large section of road was taken back to gravel without any consultation with the residents in that area.
Go ahead, Andre.
Through the chair to Council Wilhelm. Council's direction was that we would not do any coal mix or oiling of roads anymore. Council was informed that we would be pulverizing them as it got to the point of disrepair. The calls that I've dealt with, I did tell the people we weren't finished yet, that next week we would be back. We're in the midst of, I think we've almost finished hauling our asphalt millings to both roads. Next week, we're gonna do more work. And the people I've talked to, I've told them, this is the best time to do it. We still have heat. The sun's gonna regenerate it. It will tighten up. No, it's not gonna be the way it was, but it won't be gravel. That oil will regenerate once we're done. That's all I can tell you. We have our orders from council. That's what we're doing. If we consult with people, ask, and I did have one lady ask, why weren't we asked if we wanted it or not? If we went and asked if you want it or not, we wouldn't waste our time. Nobody's gonna want it. So we're doing what we can with the funds we have to keep our roads somewhat decent condition.
I appreciate that response. I just to clarify, when you say that it's a decision of council, like, I don't recall a single RFD that's come to us that said, we're going to pulverize this road. We want that decision made. Again, if it's a legacy policy that's carried over because of our economic recovery plan or whatever, that's fine. But there's been communication to the public that council has made a decision to pulverize this road, and I don't recall that ever being a discussion in this council.
So I'll jump in on the council thing because I was sitting at the table when this came across. So, 4 years ago, we wound up in a very financially difficult time. We revisited a whole pile of policies. One of them was on the dust control and paving and hard surfaces and oiled roads. At that time, that policy recommendation came forward from administration because our direction was to figure out how to make the dollars go as far as they possibly could because we were cutting service levels. That was the reality. The policy at that time was to, if the oiled roads or any of this surface, not asphalt, but if I remember the policy correctly, but an oiled road, if it went sideways, it was gonna be ground up and turned back into gravel. That was the policy. So it is a legacy policy at this point. And I think it's important to note, we'd have to get a map out and figure out exactly where all these roads are at this point in time. And there is a conversation that this council needs to have around service levels and how we're gonna pay for it, because in the past, I don't think that conversation was ever had. I don't think a lot of people are gonna have a problem with a local improvement type of thing if we can get really good roads and really well-maintained roads, but at the time that decision was made, we were in dire straits. So that's where the policy came from. Go ahead.
So again, I'm only expressing this because I received so many phone calls about this and I didn't feel, I did talk with administration previously and after that conversation and then continued conversation with the residents, I didn't feel that the answer was acceptable for why that this decision was made. Like this isn't a small section of hardtop that was recovered. This is a couple kilometers of road servicing a lot of residents. And I don't like that this decision was made, and maybe that policy needs to be reviewed again, because if you're just looking at a bottom line or dollars and cents when you're making these decisions, you're not taking into the fact that we by this decision, I shouldn't say you, we by making this policy and having administration follow this policy are significantly impacting these property values for one, for these people, and two, quality of life. It was a tough decision, I'm sure, for administration to make, and I'm just, it's, the residents are incredibly unhappy about it.
Councillor Kush?
Just a quick follow-up to what John said there. The part of when we were deciding on the roads, pulverizing them back, was a lot of them, the cost to maintain them, because of the traffic. Like some of them put up, I don't believe the base and whatnot was properly done off the start. We were just finding that it was more money was being spent just trying to keep them status quo than trying to actually prepare or do anything, and they were still falling apart. It's just that the roads themselves basically needed to be completely redone, and the funding wasn't there. The repair, like just repairing it wasn't quite, it just, I gotta say, it wasn't enough. And I think when the roads went in, the volume and the type of traffic that was going down those roads was a lot different than where they, I guess, progressed to. And in some of the areas, I know Bison Road for one, there's a lot of heavier traffic that was down there. We find the roads just weren't keeping up with a lot of the stuff that was going down there.
Councillor Culkin?
Yeah, through the chair to Jeremy, I don't disagree with you in the, in the way that you presented this. And I think that one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is that as this asset management strategy starts to move forward, we're going to be able to not only identify the legacy part of what's happened, but also prioritize some of the things that we need to do in order to mitigate what you're talking about. And I think the message to your residents should be that, yeah, we inherited a big problem, and there's a lot of work being done right now to make sure that those service levels and those things that we are going to be looking at when we do these things are the responsibility of council as a whole. And I don't think the weight of what's happening out there should fall entirely on the shoulders of you as the representative. It falls on this council to make sure that those things are dealt with. And I think that asset management strategy is going to be play a big part of that.
Councillor Prestige?
Through the chair, Jeremy, you have to understand our roads in this county. They're built out of silt, because this is the soil we have here. It doesn't stand up. So when you put some gravel on and then some oil, the road will never stay. It will bulge out and go. So it's a constant maintenance issue to keep the road in good shape. And every couple of years, you gotta rip it up and relay it. And you're not really fixing it, you're just putting it back down again. These roads should never have been oiled, because the base cannot handle. So to fix it right would be almost like paving. You'd have to rip it up, redo the base, and it still's not gonna work. You go to Parkland County, all their roads are oiled, and they're a mess too.
Andre?
We're through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm. First, I was going to mention what Councillor Prestige commented. Our roads were never designed for the loads they're carrying, especially the older roads. The base isn't there. It was just, 5 inches of gravel and then oil on top. There's not a lot of strength there. Just about every oiled road we have, if you drive down there, and typically at the end of it, there's somebody with a big truck, heavy equipment, and it just pounds it out. Bison Road was by far our #1 road for service requests, for potholes, always rough. Since we pulverized it, other than the initial day after getting the calls that we pulverize it, we have not had any calls. Pine Meadows was our #2. Always calls about the potholes. We pulverized it last year. We didn't get calls. we pulverized it again this year. Yes, we got calls, but we're fixing pothole over pothole. And the time we were spending wasn't worth the effort, so that's why we pulverized. We do have a tank of oil that is available to us. We probably do about a kilometer of road, but we don't have the staff to do that work this time of year. We're moving on to other stuff. And if the decision of council was to oil roads moving down the road, I would be recommending that we do base work, and that gets expensive. I would say I'll say for every 5 calls I got on Bison and Woodland Estates, for every 5 I got complaining, I probably had, I'll say 1.5, 2 saying they like it better than it was. And as far as a comment about, you mentioned people were told to call counselors or something like that.
That was a separate conversation.
So, people I talked to demanding their cold mix back, I simply told them, we are following policy. I don't have the authority. You need to contact your elected officials. If they don't contact the elected officials, my hands are tied.
You know, as we'll say, our financial situation gets better. I mean, I understand you have residents that pave driveways and everything after that too. And yeah, it might be something if we start finding that we have the funds to look at what it would cost to redo the base and actually make it, you know, what it should be instead of what we put down there. But yeah, I agree, this is a conversation we should have again. I just don't think financially where we are right now is something we can put that kind of money in there when we're looking at just about another 5 million to fix 2 other roads already. And we don't have a whole lot more in our debentures that we can take.
So just to finish up, my job as councillor is to bring the voice of the people in our county to this council. If I was passionate when I was talking about before, is because I've had a lot of passionate conversations this morning, and that is what it is. I think part of the root of the problem is if the residents are seeing this happen and they don't understand what's happening and they don't understand what the plan is for the future, that's a communication problem from our end towards them. And that is something that could solve or prevent these types of situations from happening in the future. Everything around communication, I think, can be better. I'm not saying that's an administrative problem or a council problem. I'm just saying I see a gap that occurred here with these 2 roads, and a lot of it was around communication or the plan for the future or when and why and what we're doing here, right? So when they call me and they ask, why the heck did you vote to do this? And I have to tell them, well, I'm sorry, I didn't vote for that. And I found out that this road construction was happening the same time you did. That becomes a problem for our residents to hear stuff like that. Okay, so it's, I'm glad I brought the conversation here. I wanted more background. I wanted to understand the previous council's and administration's reasoning behind what we did. And I will lay that matter to rest for now.
So just so that I get this out as well, because since we're on the topic of information, one thing that when I observed, I was running for council back in the day. I'd attended a couple of council meetings and I'd seen a whole bunch of things that were going on our CRB, Country Residential Business Roads. So originally they said, oh yeah, you can have a large shop, you can have lots of trucks, you can have whatever you want. And typically in oil field country, if you open a business at a rural address, you are in trucking. You want to park your trucks, you want to park log trucks, you want to park oil field trucks, whatever. Then what happened was the roads started getting degraded in those areas. There were residential subdivisions that had been constructed originally, and then somebody would say, well, let's go CRB. So they went CRB. And I had conversations around that decision in the past, why they made that decision. And the interesting thing was they said, well, it's the trucks that are ripping up the road. And it's not the trucks that are ripping up the road, it's the fact that we never spec'd the road to have that kind of traffic on it. So what we should have done as an administration and as a council is said, okay, you wanna do CRB, then you upgrade the road to handle that traffic. If you wanna upgrade the road to handle that traffic, we'll designate the whole thing CRB. And then you can fly at it. The problem is we're stuck with a lot of the planning that's occurred in the past. So let's look at East Mountain, West Mountain Road. You go out and pave the whole thing, we have not a single nickel set aside to repave that. Nothing. And what's the repaving on East and West Mountain Road gonna be worth when we're reaching the end of the service life on it?
Roughly $1 million a mile,
So what's that, 30 million?
east and west. 15.
15? So there's 15 million that's gonna be coming up. Like, there's a really large conversation around infrastructure, and I've said it, I don't know how many times, and I know everybody at this table believes it. When we talk about infrastructure at the rural level, it's always roads, roads, roads. We need to upgrade the service level, we need to spend more money on the roads, and we need to make sure that the roads are in better shape. But a lot of it is, we've got to, as Andre was saying, we've actually got to dig up some of these roads and fix what is deep in the ground, not just what's on the surface. You can pave the roads that we have, you could actually asphalt the roads that we have now and they'd be complete crap in a year, because the base won't handle that load. So if we want to go on a campaign to fix roads, we better be putting millions and millions and millions and millions aside to do it. I'm not saying this to lecture council or to alarm anyone. I'm saying that there's a lot of things that were done, choices that were made in the past, equipment specs that have changed, the way that traffic patterns have changed that weren't accounted for. This is all part of what asset management is designed to do. I'm really hoping that we have asset management up to that detail, and it will get better in the future. We all want to increase the service levels as we go, but we need to have a plan to figure out how to do it in a sustainable fashion, where as these hard surface roads come due in their lifespan, they are paid for. And whether that's through a local improvement tax that we talk about with residents and say, where do you want your service level? Do you want it hard surface? Do you want it oil? This is how much it's gonna cost. We'll have that conversation, but at the moment, we're still in a recovery mode, and the unsettling things that are going on with the town. And again, this is why when we talk about the frustration level of being asked to spend $7 or $8 million in another municipality, why I get so frustrated, because we have a lot of things in our own municipality that have been neglected for years. And we're trying to get the financial recovery together. It's working. We're trying to evaluate those levels of service, and we're having those conversations. The asset management program came in years ago, and it takes a long time to build that database. So I'm hoping that people at least take away that this wasn't something that was done. You're absolutely right. The communication should have been done better, and that's our fault. We should have done better. But the decisions that were made were certainly not just, well, we're going to rip up this road and we really don't care about you. So I hope that at least tells a bit of a story as to why the decisions were made and how things got to where they are. And that's it. I'm not making any excuses for it. I think everybody at this table wants better roads. Absolutely everybody at the table wants that. The issue is figuring out how to pay for it. So with that, I'll leave it. Do you have anything further? Do you want to follow up? Or?
I think I'm good now.
Okay. Councillor Kulkin.
Yeah, I've had an interesting couple of weeks. We had our meeting at Briar District Social Housing. Finally finalized the construction there. We're starting to see an increase in the residents that are moving in. as far as the way that that operation is run, fantastic group of people. Things, there's a few little glitches, but as far as the management of that facility, it's pretty darn good, so we can be proud that we're involved with that. Then I've had some interesting meetings with residents in Fort Assiniboine over the celebration of the 200th year anniversary. The ad hoc committee, which is the museum society there, is starting to put together the pieces that we need, and with the help of Bert, you know, trying to get some grant funding and some budget structure together to see what the county would be able to contribute to having that become a really good event for us and next year. They, without really consulting those of us who were helping out with that, the group got together and decided they were going to start to advertise by putting a Voyageur canoe through the Canadian Brigade into the Barhead Fair Days to start to let people know, and that kind of became a bit of an issue because of a lack of communication. But I'd like to say thank you to Gordon Bird for helping straighten that out. We got it done, and I guess they're going to carry on with that in the Hoedown Parade this coming weekend coming up, and they're hoping a couple of councillors will participate in that. The other interesting one was I met yesterday. Growth has really been having some issues which I struggled with as well, and that is that we really operate in a void because we don't understand what we want to be as an organization when we grow up. And this has not been something that is just new. It's just that it's been that way for a lot of years, and that's why it ended up where it ended up. And I really have to give our EDO here credit for organizing and being able to make the wild portion of it through his direction. Wild is going to be very successful in what it was intended to do. But the underlying problem is that the Rural Economic Development Associations really need to understand that if you only focus on the tourism aspect, you're not doing the job that you're supposed to do. And when I started looking through trying to figure out how to do that, there was really no structured direction. And so what we've been doing is trying to match some of the funding, and we're doing it the opposite way that we should be doing it, is we're getting funding and then creating a project, which is not something that I really think is value, but what we did was we're manipulating it so that we can start to get some professional help in formulating what we really need to do and align it with the strategic plan that the county has here. And Bert's been really good in helping us out with that. And so yesterday we met with a couple of potential people who have a long history in successfully doing those types of projects. And the takeaway from that was that we really need to have some engagement with not only our own municipalities, because we don't understand what our inventory of resources are. So how the heck can we develop an economic strategy without that knowledge? And we absolutely have no data or information that really would support what other municipalities would like to see the RETA do. So that's where we're headed. And that's been a really difficult thing, and we spent a lot of time on it, but I think that we're starting to put the pieces in place now. And I guess the suggestion from Bert is that we do have to have regional tourism and promotion and destination development, but market intelligence on the key local industries. We need that. We don't have a lot of that. We need a lot of regional representation at conferences, but it's very difficult for us to afford everybody to go, so we have to designate which municipalities would go to which conferences and what information we're looking for. And the big one is the local experts. How are we utilizing them? And we just haven't done a good job of that. Woodlands, you know, like, we're really driving this RETA because of the people that we have here in economic development. And I think that that Site Lake Conference really gave some direction as to how we have to move forward. And if we're going to invest any kind of money into these rural economic development organizations, there has to be some substance and some deliverables and some things in the end, and that's what we are tasking these two people that we interviewed yesterday to do. And I think we're going to, you know, be able to do that. And I'm hoping that once that becomes clear, I can bring that information to the table here and help you guys understand and have you realize that there's a big participation that's needed from all of the individual councils to really set the direction of that board. So that's kind of been my work in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and if there's any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Okay, any questions to Councillor Colgan? Councillor Williams?
It's been pretty quiet. There was a library board meeting. I was unable to attend that, but I think my summer break is over this week. I got a couple meetings and golf tournament, and it's gonna be pretty busy now, but been quiet for me. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions to Councillor Williams? No. Councillor Preston?
At the start, like Jeremy, I went to the Blue Ridge Family Fun Day. Cooked a lot of hot dogs, had a lot of fun, talked to a lot of people. And what I really like about this Blue Ridge Family Fun Day, and you see it there, is families coming out. It's free, they come and get a hot dog, there's a bit of entertainment, but it's the whole family comes out. It's great to see. I would like to see more events there for the kids to do, but that's something we can work on. Next is, we had our airport advisory meeting last night, went very well. Something else I just found out yesterday was Blue Ridge Lumber has a new general manager. David L. is retiring at the end of the year. The new guy's name is Hardeep Kloon. I believe he's the manager of the MDF plant. So he'll be taken over as general manager. I think some of us met Hardeep last year when we had lunch. Great guy. So I don't have all his contact information, but once I do, I'll pass it on. Something else we're going to do is, once we get in contact with Hardeep, is a mill tour at Blue Ridge Lumber for the councilors and administration if they want to come. So as soon as we can get in contact with Hardeep and set it up, we will offer that to anybody that wants to come. The other thing is Whitecourt Chamber of Commerce is doing their economic forum this fall. We've attended it other years. This year, we did not have the money in the budget for the Economic Development Board to buy a table, but I think it's very important that we do attend this. I believe a table for 8 is $5,000. If we could find the money somewhere else to do this, the Whitecourt Chamber of Commerce is really supporting the county right now, so I think we need to be there. And I don't know if,
What date did you say?
Anybody have any questions about?
Councilor Dean?
So, with respect to the forum, the economic forum, is the county making a presentation, or are they part of the event?
That I don't know. Usually.
We have in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have in the past, and it was actually good because it was one of the first things I got to do after the organizational meeting. So when I first became mayor/reeve, was go to that, and it was interesting because I kind of went through an inventory of what the county has in the way of roads, landmass, and number of fire halls, a number of libraries, number of all these different things. And it was interesting because afterwards I had people saying, I had no idea you had 4 fire departments. I had no idea you had 2 water and sewer systems. You know, I had no idea that you were looking after all these things. So it was a good opportunity to get the bigger picture of the area out there.
So, and just to follow on that, thanks for bringing the chamber up, Bruce. When we moved our meetings to Wednesday instead of Tuesday, it conflicted with their monthly meetings, and that was always something that generally the Reeve would be there. Not much we can do about that, but I just want to make council aware. I think Bert goes to those meetings and represents the county, but it was great when I know you and I had attended one. It worked out. It was on and off Wednesday. I'm thinking that was maybe February or something.
Yeah. I've been to a couple of them, but they're on summer break right now, so
Yeah.
we'll see. We might be able to have a quick communication with them to see if they can offset their week or something so that they're in between.
Yeah, that.
Or we do it for the afternoon.
Yeah, but the chamber's been very supportive of all businesses and that's what they're doing, and that's what they're there to do, is support business. So I've definitely noticed they're definitely taking steps to support businesses. So I would, if you'd like to make a motion on that we get that brought back to us on a way to attend and do a presentation for that.
So that would be a notice of motion?
Yeah, that would be a notice of motion. Would we have time? Or-
I can't remember the date of the, but
October 19th, when I just had it, just hang on. October 19th, yeah.
Okay. Is our next meeting 2 weeks out, or are we,
You're back on your schedule, September 5th, I believe, is the next council.
September,
Sorry, I'm just looking here. September 14th is your next council meeting.
that's 2 weeks. I don't know if that's time or not.
It's a month out.
Yeah, how do we do this?
Just a notice of motion to have it, an RFD brought to council for consideration.
Okay, and that would include having Woodlands make a presentation as well at the forum.
Yeah, I would just have the notice of motion to bring back about the economic, Whitecourt District Chamber of Commerce Economic Forum, and included in that, we'll get the background information on that.
Okay.
And provided that.
Does that work for you, Bruce? Oh, sorry, Councilor Prestige. Okay, go ahead. You want to make that motion? Go ahead.
I'll make a notice of motion that administration bring to the next council meeting. How did you say that?
The request for a decision regarding the Whitecourt and District Chamber of Commerce Economic Forum.
Do I have to repeat it? She's writing it down.
Okay, I'll accept that motion on the, a notice of motion to have us attend the Whitecourt Chamber of Commerce Economic Forum. It'll be brought back to council. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, carried. Any questions to go, sorry, Council Prestage, are you done?
No, another thing I did last Saturday was I attended the Open Farm Days. I stepped in for Dave there. It was the Euro Farms, their grand opening, ribbon cutting. Interesting place. They have walking trails, berry patch. They're gonna have camping. They got an old chuck wagon that you can rent for the night to camp out in this old chuck wagon and stuff. So they're just in the beginning stages of developing this little area. So I wish them luck, and it was great going out and helping them do the ribbon cutting.
Okay. Any questions to Council Prestige? Council Cush?
Yeah, first made the Pembina Zone 3 meeting. One thing that I guess a couple things came out of that. Number one, with regards to the ICF, lots of municipalities that had representation there that turned into a really large and fairly hot discussion amongst the representation that was there. So we're not the only ones that are kind of feeling the pinch of where we're at. Another one or point that kind of came out, there was a presentation brought by the I'm gonna probably get this wrong, but the Nurse Practitioners Association, I think it was. And I didn't realize how underutilized our nurse practitioners are in our province. A lot of other areas, they're able to actually run their own practices and fill in a lot of the, I guess, areas where your doctors and stuff currently have to do here. We always talk about a great big pinch for we're short on doctors and wait times to get in for appointments and stuff to see anybody, and how long that is. And given that these nurse practitioners could fill that void, they're one step above a registered nurse, and they got to start the RN. They got schooling and stuff that comes out of it to get to where they are, but they're still that step down from the doctor. But they could fill that void if we utilize them properly. So I would like to make a notice of motion for administration to bring back some information for the rest of council and an advocacy letter for the nurse practitioners from us to, I think it was AHS it had to go to. Do you remember there, Mr. Frank?
I think it was to the Alberta Health Services.
I think it was to Alberta Health Services.
Was it Alberta Health Services or the minister?
I think it was to the minister.
Might have been the
I
minister.
thought it was the minister.
Yeah,
But
but we'll,
Yeah.
we do the research. We
if
know,
we can get at least know as much, get the research and an advocacy letter for them. I believe that if we can help move them into the position that they should be in, it should help a lot of the voids in our healthcare. So I can make that as a notice of motion, I guess.
You could just go ahead and say your notice of motion.
Go ahead, notice of motion to have administration bring back an advocacy letter and information to council for the nurse practitioners and trying to help move them up into the healthcare system.
so you stopped at the nurse practitioners, did you?
Pardon?
Notice a motion to bring an advocacy letter back to council for consideration for the nurse practitioners
Yes.
association.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Any opposed? That's carried.
And a couple more things.
Yep.
Letter came up from the wire. I'll forward it to everybody. There's an email. Want to give a shout out to Jenna, our librarian out of Blue Ridge. They had a write up on kind of the Blue Ridge Library and just a small thing on her and her background there. It was very well received. We had the Woodlands Library Board meeting. I talked about a bunch of just the summer programs that they put on, and the different reading events and everything that they've had between the fort and Blue Ridge, and they've been blown away by the support they've had in the community and people actually attending. Like I guess the numbers of people attending have been higher than they've been expecting, which is great. Fortunately, missed the open farm days. I'd like to again thank Bruce for making a representation from the county out in my area there. I heard again, great representation of the community out there from Backwoods Buffalo and at the Ural again. Had an Anselmo Ag meeting, which again, through the summer, just pretty quiet, just kind of talk about bookings and stuff that they had. And one other thing, just kind of a concern that I have when, in regards to road maintenance, I know we've had a couple of our discussions there. We had a road, took just about a month and a half before it's seen any type of maintenance on it. It's done, everything's taken care of now, but, I know in the summer it's been fairly dry and stuff, but just a question, Andre, like, I know some of the roads get done multiple times a week, others, maybe once every couple weeks, but typically is like a month and a half, a little excessive for somebody to see a grader or any type of maintenance on.
Through the chair to Council Cush, all depends on the time of year. Down in Anselmo, our regular grader operator has been off for a while. We do hire contractors to go in that area. And when the concern for the one road did come in, we did send him down there. However, he did west of 751 instead of going east of 751, and then took a while for him to get back. But you're right, there are some roads we may do twice a week. There's others we may not go down more than once every 3 weeks.
So just a month and a half is kind of a little excessive. I guess the concern that some of the residents are talking about is just, they pay taxes and whatnot, and when you don't see, or, not that you always see the grader stuff, but at least notice something being done with, for the maintenance of the road out there, residents do get frustrated. That's all I got.
Okay, any questions to Councillor Cush? Nothing. Okay, that puts me on the list here. So, again, summertime, it's a little slower, but RMA's actually been heating up. They've been pushing on LGFF through the summertime, so that local government fiscal framework. It looks like they're pushing ahead on a provincial police force. Again, not a very hot topic. Well, sorry, not a very popular topic with the public right now, and that seems to be a communication issue. I went to the Zone 3 meeting. The PCN, the nurse practitioner is very well received, and I actually emailed our PCN, our primary care network. Unfortunately, the primary care network also meets every Wednesday that we're in a council meeting, and that's the one that I'm supposed to be part of a group of. So I sent them a letter to ask if they can just rejig that date. I think doctor recruitment and retention is going to be something that's critical for rural Alberta, along with the nurse practitioner. It's not a solution, it's, I think, a part of the puzzle that needs to fit in there, and they need to figure out where that goes. They're not going to replace physicians, and I want to make sure that people understand that's not our position or their position or the intent of supporting the nurse practitioner idea. They're an extra level of support that can take some heat off of some of the workload off of the doctors and fill in some of the gaps. With that, by the way, that's about all I have. Is there any questions for me or? Nothing. Okay, I'll accept the motion.
I'll move the council reports and questions as information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cush. Motion to move as information. Any discussion? All in favor? And if everybody's okay, I'm gonna call a, let's say, 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 11:25. Now just wait for Nikita to tell us we're clear. Okay, we're back. So that brings us to 10.1 is concluded, 10.2 service tracker, monthly reports. That is going to be, sorry, this is still loading on my screen. Who's doing that?
Yeah, your worship, members of council, the monthly service, if there's any questions.
Any
We
questions?
encourage council to use this when you, instead of phoning me, so then I have to put it in.
I wonder if that'll happen.
I did have a comment on it, and I brought this up a couple meetings ago, I believe, a couple months maybe. Just with regards to, because I put these in for residents sometimes. Did we ever take off the requirement of an email on it? A mandatory requirement of
There's an
email?
option that we require. If we take it off, then they become anonymous, and then we don't know if they're legit, right? That's the difficulty. You need some verification. What we did, and Nikita, correct me, if you can do an and/or. You can have a phone number or a email, right? Yeah, I thought that's what you said, that could be done, right?
Because the issue was there are older residents that have no emails.
Yeah.
I was putting my email in there, but I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it, so.
Is-
I'll put
Again,
Gord,
it's-
I'll put Gord's email in from here on out.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll know it's being done then.
So, I mean, again, it's like you look through the requests and for the most part, it's roads. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. And I certainly reiterate that, we've had lots of conversations about roads and we recognize that the roads are a big discussion and again, this is something that unfortunately takes some time, so bear with us, but we are aware of it. And there are discussions happening around the roads and the asset management program and how that's going to be sustainable in the future and setting of those service levels. And I think if our economic recovery continues the way that it is, pending a disastrous result of our what's going on with the town, we should be in a better financial position to certainly address the service levels on the road and start getting some real input on that. Councilor Dean?
Thanks. And so to that point, I want to look at, I'll use my division for example. There's only 5 service requests relating to roads, and I have to think that that's pretty good performance by Andre and his team. I don't know whether that's people that just aren't submitting a service request, but when you consider that there's 4 requests for grading and washboarding and 1 for pothole repair, what's the time frame for this? Is it 2 months?
1 month.
1 month. In 1 month, I have to say that's kudos to your team.
Yeah, and to be fair, I was going by the percentages.
Sure, yeah.
30% grading washboarding, 15% potholes, 13% signs, 8% dust control, 6% culvert drainage and flooding. I would consider that in roads. Road blockage debris, 5%. So yeah, you're right, the complaint level, sorry, I shouldn't say complaint.
Service request.
The service request, and we I've heard that word complaint, and I think people need to know that this is not I want to make sure that was a misused word on my point. The service request around this, and this is really what this is about, is what level of service do people want, expect, and how do we make it sustainable? So my point is that the majority of the service requests are infrastructure and road related, so that's where the energy needs to be focused. Okay, if there's no other questions on it, I'll accept a motion on the report. Councilor Copeland.
I'll move that we accept the service director monthly report as information.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Financial reports. Andrew, so, yeah, do you want to take the opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit here since it's your first meeting? And you're a recent addition, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. My name's Andrew World. I'm a CPA by training. I've been working in municipal government for my first 12 years of my career was in municipal government. And I worked at Woodlands County from 97 to 2000. And then I went to Alberta Newsprint for 9 years. Worked there in the finance, did the fiber management. I did everything at ANC for a while. It was a great place to work. And then I worked at Capital Power, where I was in charge of their strategic planning and risk management. And ultimately, about 7 years ago, I went on my own. And I've been doing, this is probably my fifth time moving into an organization to help hire a CFO for them and kind of cover the position until we can get somebody on board. So hopefully we get some good candidates and we can get somebody on board as soon as possible.
Okay. Do you want to do introductions of council too, just so he knows, everybody knows who everybody is, or? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Williams.
Devin Williams, Councilor for Assiniboine Team.
Bruce Prestige, Council for Blue Ridge.
Good question, so.
John Burrows, Reeve.
Peter Kilkin, and I'm from Blue Ridge, Freeman River, Division 6.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Whitecourt East.
Alan Dean, Whitecourt Central.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, Your Worship, members of council, the administration has provided a new version of the 2022 budget report for your information. I've sorted this by financial object roll-up. And if you look, that means the last three digits of the account code. So it's a roll-up by function, or by object, not by function, so not by department. I've also provided commentary on some of the larger variances, just so you have an idea of where we've seen some differences from budget. And future iterations of this report will include a forecast column. And the reason why I think forecast is more important than year-to-date actual is because that eliminates a lot of the commentary. Eliminates the year-end journal entry commentary, eliminates the transactions like depreciation, commentary on depreciation, and then it will provide council with a snapshot of what we expect the numbers to be at December 31st. In September, the next step of this process for me is to bring back a report by function, so by department. The expectations is that I'm going to create the report in early September and send it to management, all the managers in each department for their review and their commentary on variances. And then we'll put together a package for council probably by the end of September. And it will be more of a detailed picture of the overall condition of the municipality, probably as of the end of August. I guess ultimately, at the end of the day, what Gord has asked me to do is to improve overall budget oversight. And ultimately, the key, I think, is no surprises for council. We don't want to come to you in December and have to ask you to approve something that's you should have known about way before that.
Any questions from council?
Just a comment, yeah, I found this really easy to read, thank you.
Go ahead.
On the report itself. Just looking at the line item 253 contracted equipment and vehicle repair. You put a comment in there, 5-year average expenditure is $286K. should we not have been budgeting for that average then, as opposed to this decreased number, 62,000 and 57,000?
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm. So one of the things that happened with the budget in 2021 is the budget was seeded based on 2020 budget. So basically, they took the 2020 budget and seeded it based on how much increase they were allowed in the budget, and didn't go through each line item to determine whether the actual line item should be adjusted. So you'll see that in quite a few of the codes, where you'll see history, the actual does not really tie very well to the year-to-date. On an overall basis, it does, but in specific line items, it doesn't. And that is something that we will fix in the 2023 budget process. So we'll use the 5-year average to kind of give us an idea of what we've been spending. And then from there, we'll populate the budget, and obviously within the ramifications of what we're allowed to spend as a total budget. And it's quite a few categories too. You can look at, for example, on the first page, penalties. The 5-year average was 428,000. That should be revenue, not expenditure. And last year was 272 actual, 258 this year. You could, that number was just basically seeded from the previous year, and it should have been $250,000. And so I think we'll do that on every category, and we'll make sure that they tie to the actuals much closer.
Okay.
Andrew, have you had a chance to go through our background and our history and kind of, see where we were to where we are today, and do you give a little comment on where you think how you think we've responded to the pressures that we saw under the non-collection and some of the incredible stresses that we've been put under as a municipality?
Yeah, Your Worship, I've looked at the recovery plan. It does seem to be well on track in terms of, already just the condition of the municipality in terms of financial position, with money in the bank, not having to borrow funds. Appears to be that if you look at this current report for the 2022 year, you appear, I would say yes, you appear very much on track for this year, meeting you're probably going to have some surplus funds. The only caveat I give is that I haven't gone into the details on each department, but it's looking pretty strong. You have a few areas, for example, your allowance that you've set up, you have a $3 million allowance for linear property. And based on collections this year, a good portion of that won't be needed. So there's some areas where you have some opportunities to maybe take some of those funds, put it into reserves or into a surplus to cover your operating costs in the future. I think you've done as a municipality, you've done in a short period of time, made excellent strides, because the numbers speak for themselves in terms of your financial condition. I still think we need to do a little bit of work on the tax side. We've got some tax dollars that we're dealing with some of the, I think it's two of the vendors that we need to work with in terms of collecting taxes, in terms of you're trying to get those in the door. And that's ongoing with, that's something I'm going to be working on right away. I'm going to bite off in my short period of time, I'm hoping to bite off the material items. I'm not going to try and get into we spend $100 on envelopes. I'm going to be looking at where we can get the big dollars in the door. And so that'll be focusing on grants and collections.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, Councilor Rickman.
I like the way this is laid out, so it's easy for me to understand. When you're looking at the difference between our revenue and expenses, and you have a deficit on the operating budget, that's entirely, and I think I can see it now by looking up, but that's entirely based upon the depreciation of our assets, right?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm, that's correct. That's basically just a balancing number, and what we'll do is in the forecast, we would put a number in there based on what's in the budget, so then in the forecast, you wouldn't see that. When we get to a forecast, you'll actually see what we have for a surplus then.
Okay.
If it's a surplus, and I believe it would be a surplus right now, we'll actually show you a surplus forecast.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Do we like the format?
It's very easy to read.
Yeah.
Easier to read.
Yeah, that's something that we've been searching for is, you know, you have seven different sets of eyes, and some of us interpret reports a little differently, and some people want to generate reports differently, so we're always searching for something that's easy to read and easy to you know, have the council as a whole look through it and be able to, excuse me, see the good and the bad all together, so, Councilor Cook.
Make a motion to move the financial reports of information.
Thank you, Councilor Cush. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Excuse me, that'll bring us to our working point of correction, 10.4, CAO report. Mr. Finch.
Your worship, members of council, been working with the interim manager of protective services to introduce him to the fire department side of things, as well as understanding the contract with Laxing and patrol services. Also have in the past week done interviews for the protective services manager, and we'll be working with the fire chiefs next week to get their final input on the shortlisted candidates that we've already interviewed, and get their opinion. And we did that previously on the positions as well. Helped out or assisted with the planning department on a couple of planning issues, and working with them. And as indicated with Mr. World, working with him to understand what has transpired in the last year in the organization for corporate services. And everything else is in closed session.
Okay, very good. Any questions to our CAO? Councilor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council accepts the CAO report as information.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right, that moves us to 11.1, section 11, which is committee of the whole, so I'll need a motion to move into camera on those items under FOIP 17, 21, 19, and yes.
I'll make a motion to have a committee of the whole.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, I'll wait for Nikita to tell us we're clear. Okay, good. All right, we're back from our closed session. So we have a couple of motions coming out of that. So road allowance, land purchase, 11.1. Councilor Cush.
Make the motion the council approves the purchase of the road allowance on Southwest 6-62-6 west of the 5th quarter for $1.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That item is carried. 11.2, that was Councilor Dean.
Yes, I move that council directs administration to explore council's option in accordance with the municipal land management policy.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 11.3. Councilor Wilhelm, go ahead.
I'll motion that council accepts the ICF
update as information.
Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor? Passed, carried. 11.4, that was personnel and staffing, Counselor Kuchen.
Yeah, I will make a motion that council accept the personnel and staffing update as information.
Okay, any discussion there? All in favor? Carried. And 11.5 was an addition, and that was on the Robert Stanley subdivision under 17 Foyt.
Motion to accept the discussion of Robert Stanley subdivision as information.
Thank you, Counselor Cush. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. Counselor Cush?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, no debate on a motion to adjourn, all in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody.